Hello, everyone, and welcome to another informative episode of the Florida Business Forum podcast. Let's open the Florida Business Forum floodgates and let the information begin to flow. Here's your Florida Business Forum information guru and anchorman, Sam Yates. Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Yates, and the information floodgates are indeed open. And with that information flowing, it's quite appropriate that if you look at your screen right now, you'll see a gentleman with shrimp over his shoulders. And that is because Robbins McIntosh is the CEO of Homegrown Shrimp USA. And it is a Thailand-owned company, but you're the CEO. You're also VP of the Thailand-owned company. And I'm going to try again to get their name correct. It's Charoen Pokphand Group, and they are out of Thailand. How'd I do?
Not too bad, but to make it a little bit better, it's Charoen Pokphand Foods limited publicly traded company. But
I love it. I love it. You know, it made it sound like I almost knew what I was talking about. But Robbins, welcome to the program today. And the reason that I have you here today is because we want to talk about shrimp. And in particular, you know, I have to let our audience know that this is not the first time I've visited or had a conversation with Robbins. And he really is, in my opinion, and many others, genius when it comes to shrimp. So tell us about what's going on in Indiantown, Florida with Homegrown Shrimp.
Well, Indiantown is the home of Homegrown Shrimp USA. This project was conceptualized by the company, the chairman in the company, in probably 2017, 2016, where we were asked to find a shrimp farm operation in the United States because they wanted to invest in farming in the United States. Charoen Pokphand is one of the largest shrimp producing companies in the world. We've got operations in most of Southeast Asia. Thailand is the base, but we have China, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, India, Bangladesh, and other interests in other places. So we did not have anything in the United States, but the United States is one of the larger buyer of importers of shrimp. And certainly there's been some controversy that the United States imports all of these shrimp and these countries take advantage. So we wanted to basically not just export to the United States, but to try to develop technologies where the United States could produce shrimp on their own. And so that was the concept. We looked for a shrimp farm. There really was nothing. I mean, we want big. So the first time I met the chairman of CP at a dinner where he brought me kind of interviewed, he made it very clear. Robbins, never think small. We only do big. Anybody can do small. I do big. So we needed to look for big. There's nothing big in shrimp farming in the United States, so it has to be created. And there's really has not been a successful technology demonstrated in terms of making profits. So we really started from scratch and find what was which was a farm when we looked and we came to visit maybe 3 prospects, nothing big, but this was the winner because outside on the road, there was a small broken down sign that said shrimp farm. And that was enough. You know, the chairman goes, "You said there are no shrimp farms in the United States. Look, there's a shrimp farm." Well, it wasn't really a shrimp farm, but it did have a sign. And that's kind of why we're in Indiantown.
And in fact, I think if we were to take a look back at what was here, if we were to see a photo, we would see that was sort of like shrimp ponds, but not a shrimp farm as you have right now.
There were ponds. I mean, and again, most shrimp farms are ponds. So there's 99.9% of the shrimp we buy that are farm grown are grown in some form of ponds. Tank farms are something of really the last 5 years, and we're finding tank farms in China. There's tank farms in Vietnam. And of course, if you're going to do farming in the United States all the time, and the concept was, yes, Indiantown is the start, but whatever we develop in Indiantown, we want to be able to take to anywhere in the United States. so that we can produce fresh shrimp, whether it be outside of Denver, Colorado, or outside of New York City or Philadelphia. What we're developing in Indiantown is applicable anywhere to produce shrimp 12 months out of the year. But again, the home base is Indiantown, Martin County, in the great state of Florida, of which I am a longtime resident and son and of a cracker family that's been here since the 1800s. So very proud Floridian, proud that this is where we're going to do it.
You know what? I didn't know that until now. So you and I also share a cultural background, and that's good to know. Now, I once was describing to someone after visiting the farm that you were the largest shrimp farm in the United States, and that was only halfway correct, because it is my understanding that a wise man told me, Sam, hold on. There are other shrimp farms that are bigger than what we have right now with our demonstration project. We are the largest inland away from the coast, but there are others. But yours is truly unique.
Yeah, it's inland. And again, this is part of the whole concept. If I'm going to do it anywhere, anytime, it has to have two things. It has to basically be inland, because coastal waters in the United States and actually the whole world now are very difficult to get licensed for farming activities. So being inland allows licensing to be much easier, and again, allows us to develop marine farming without impacting the oceans. So one of our logos is saving the oceans through aquaculture, because we're not on the ocean. We impact no coastal habitat, which I'm very proud of. Again, salt marsh, mangrove, these habitats are precious. And if we can farm marine shrimp, which are the leading seafood choice in America today, away from the oceans, to us, this is a very positive development. So we're away from the oceans in an indoor situation that we can heat effectively with insulation. So at lower cost, we can keep the tropical conditions that a tropical shrimp require. So it's kind of odd to see tropical shrimp in snowy conditions, but if you've got indoor situations that's insulated and properly designed, yes, we can grow tropical shrimp, tropical species indoor anywhere in the world.
And I think something key there that you said, and I want to point it out to our audience, is that it's seawater. You are growing in seawater, salt water. These are not freshwater shrimp. These are seawater, saltwater shrimp that are grown in water that you keep pure. And if I had to venture a guess, are those shrimp over your shoulder there, the shrimp that are grown at the farm, and Penaeus vanami?
It is Penaeus vanami, or commonly known as the Pacific white shrimp. So that is the most common shrimp that you see in U.S. stores, restaurants. It used to be the Asian black tiger, but the black tiger ran into problems in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and that's kind of why I went to Asia, or was invited to Asia, because I had developed white shrimp technologies and selection programs. And so we implemented this in Asia, and we started by far the world's most successful selection program to improve the shrimp, to reduce the costs. And we have reduced the cost by half, which has allowed the retail customers to have much lower price shrimp in the stores today than they would have been, and more available, because we've tripled the amount of shrimp available in the world. Early on, as we were growing this industry so fast in the early 2000s, we had issues because a lot of fishermen, thought that they were so cheap. It must be because of slave labor. It must be because of, abused labor. Well, that was not the case. The case was we were implementing technology. Technology, if it's implemented correctly, is deflationary. And so we deflated the cost of shrimp production through technology, not through having slave labor or low-cost labor. Labor is difficult in Thailand. It's difficult in much of Asia. So technology is just as important in Asia as it is in the United States. And we've developed a lot of technology that has reduced the cost. And that's one of them, is the strain of shrimp we grow now, which we can produce harvests in 60 or 70 days instead of 150 days.
I was so impressed when I visited the facility. Something stuck out in my mind again when we were in the dark watching the shrimp, much like we see behind you, but even from an earlier start than that, when they were literally microscopic and being grown in your hatchery. You said that this is very much like what these shrimp see in their natural environment. It's dark, it's warm, they're happy. Walk us through the process. You do start with microscopic shrimp from the hatchery.
Basically, we import the what we call SPF, pathogen-free, that have been certified and held in our pathogen-free facilities, genetic facilities in Thailand for now 20 generations. We import those into the United States to act as our germplasm. So we then reproduce those and then put them in a tank where the female lays the eggs. We call it spawning the eggs. Those eggs will then hatch within 12, 15 hours. And what you get is a nauplii. And the nauplii, if you're looking at it with your eyes, is a pinprick. It is very small. One female will spawn, in the case here, we get about 250,000 nauplii for one spawn, one female. And we'll spawn maybe 5 or 6 females a night. That'll be 1.4, 1.5 million nauplii. Now, those nauplii then are transferred to a larval tank. So where we grow the larvae, that's a different tank. And there they will go through 3 larval stages, nauplii to zoea, zoea to mysis, and then mysis to what you would recognize as a baby shrimp, a post-larvae. That process takes about 12 days. And at the point that they're baby shrimp that you recognize, we transfer those into the farm. Temperature is important. Yes, this is a tropical species. So in the larval stage, it's more important than in the adult stage. So we maintain the temperature at about 29, 30 degrees centigrade. And yes, I should know my Fahrenheit. I've forgotten my Fahrenheit. It's hot.
Yes.
It's warm. It's a good warm temperature. And we try to maintain that 29, 30 degrees in the whole larval stage to get the best survival. Now, the light dark is not as much because they like the dark, because we have light, but the light is at night. We reverse the day length. They spawn on day length triggers, and we don't like working at midnight. So we trick them into believing that midnight is actually noon. So we get all of the work done during our working hours. And so it's dark in the day, and at midnight it's light. And that just basically sets their biological clock so they're on our time and we're not having to be on their time.
Now, that whole process, you said a couple of months from actual spawn to adult shrimp. If I'm getting that right, it's about 85 days to 85 to 100 days, thereabouts.
If we're talking about nauplii to there's 2 things here we have to clarify.
Okay.
Most shrimp we eat are not adults. They're juveniles. They're not mature. So we basically are harvesting juveniles to sell at your 40 to 50 count. That's whole per kilogram. On a per pound basis, we're about 15 count or 12 to 15 count on a pound basis. But those are juveniles. We have to hold them for 8 months to get mature individuals for reproduction. And we only grow the juveniles to a maximum of 90 days. So they're not ready to reproduce, but they are of a size that they fit into the market.
And I have to say, for the audience, if you're trying to visualize this, we'll show you some photos of what this means. I like to say they get to a delicious size as compared. You can't compare it.
If you look at the shrimp, if you could go back in your memory and look at shrimp 15, 20 years ago, the shrimp you see today at the prices that are made available today are twice as big. we used to look at a cocktail size shrimp of a 15-gram shrimp. That's what was the common size in the United States. Today, you're looking at 25, 30, 35, 40-gram shrimp selling at the same price you would buy the smaller shrimp 15, 20 years ago. And again, that's all the domestication that has been done on these shrimp.
Now, when we talk about shrimp, I also want to, we'll come back to the taste of them because there's some things we need to differentiate homegrown shrimp from other shrimp. But the development of the shrimp, I mean, you are a world expert in it, and you have managed to get these shrimp by just nothing genetic, but breeding them so that you get the best, to pick the best of the best of the best to the shrimp that we have today. Fair assessment?
Yes, more or less. I mean, again, poultry today is bred through selective pressure. Pork is selectively bred. Cattle, to a certain extent, is selectively bred. So we've applied the same principles of selective breeding to the shrimp. There's nothing molecular. There's nothing GMO about this. It's just taking what's already there and selecting for the traits that you're interested in, and then reinforcing that over time.
A little sidebar to that, and it's a trivia question that might come up at your next trivia game. You never know. Things that are fast can be likened to a runner. And if I were to say these run like a world champion, if they grow like a world champion, you might be thinking, Bolt? They're called Bolt.
Yes, when I knew we were going to the United States, and again, when we are in the conditions that we are here, there are no pathogens. So I can concentrate the breeding on one trait that's economic, and that's the speed, that's the growth rate. If I am developing shrimp for Asia or for Latin America, there's diseases everywhere. So you can't just concentrate on growth. You have to hedge and have some disease tolerance and other traits. But coming to the United States, the one advantage we have is no pathogen. So we can concentrate on really selecting 100% for growth. And that's what we did for 4 years before we came here. And so we've improved what was already a good growing shrimp and made it the best growing shrimp in the world. And yes, we had to come up with an appropriate name for the fastest shrimp in the world. And I don't know, on one of my bike rides, ideas always come to me on biking. One of my bike rides when my brain is anaerobic or no oxygen and just dreaming, Bolt came into my mind, and I said, this is the Usain Bolt line. So it becomes the Bolt line, the fastest shrimp in the world.
He has relatives in Hobe Sound, Florida, here in Martin County, so it's appropriate that we have that family tradition continuing in Martin County. Taste. And I'm a fan of your shrimp, and I think as more people taste the shrimp, shrimp already is so popular in the United States, but you can't appreciate the taste of fresh until you've tasted it. And I think a lot of people associate good tasting shrimp with something that's not fresh. Big difference.
Well, there is. And again, you eat what you're brought up on, right? So it's nothing against the American population. But when I see what buyers request for, when they import in the United States, there are things that I wouldn't be putting in a fresh shrimp. But when you try to talk them out of it, they basically will tell you, well, when we put this in taste panels, this is what our customers want. And so we are not going to have shrimp that are imported because the shrimp that we produce will be chemical free. They will be fresh, either fresh frozen. Now, what fresh frozen means is 1 hour from a harvest, they will be frozen. So they will not be standing around. Fresh means just that. They'll never be frozen, and they'll be distributed the day that they're harvested, well cooled down. So we have a shelf life on them, and they're vacuum sealed to remove oxygen, etc. So we kind of extend the life of the fresh shrimp. And for me, if you've never tasted a fresh shrimp, you don't know what good shrimp is. Shrimp can be sweet, but when they die, enzymatic processes start. And even if they're on ice, enzymatic processes start deteriorating what I consider the quality of a shrimp. So if anybody has had the pleasure of eating a shrimp out of a pond or out of one of our tanks where they're boiling the shrimp out of the tank, that is an experience that you normally will remember. But you can't get it in the United States because there are no fresh shrimp. If we're looking at shrimp from the boats, they're probably 8-9 days old before you get them. They're not that fresh. Whereas if you're growing them here and you're harvesting them and you're packing them within hours of harvesting, we're hoping that customers from Homegrown Shrimp will recognize the deliciousness and the extraordinariness of a true fresh shrimp.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to say that I've gained a title, and I wear it as an affectionate title, Friend of Homegrown Shrimp. I'm going to have a shrimp hat one of these days, and because I truly do believe in the product. It is simply amazing. Let's talk about the concept and this operation right now, coming up on the first year of it. In your assessment, you need a 2-year window to really prove that it works. I think you're there, but this is a concept, a proof of concept. What happens after proof of concept? Where in the United States could you not take this concept?
Personally, I don't think there's any place in the United States you could not take it. I mean, if there is a state that absolutely forbids the growing of shrimp, okay, you're not going to get licensed. But most states have regulations that if you're not impacting their coasts and you're not discharging water. So our farm does not discharge wastewater. We recycle all of the waste on the farm in a way that's environmentally acceptable. And we reuse the salt water. So we make the salt water one time and it's reused again and again and again. In Thailand, on my broodstock farm, that basically I consider an island surrounded by rubber trees. So it's away from the coast. It has to be run much like homegrown. I've used the same water for 10 years by recycling it. And so there's no impact on the environment. We're not discharging water. We're not using salt water that you're having to truck. We're taking basically drinking water or well water. You do need fresh water, so you would need a well or access to fresh water. And then we make the seawater, and then we reuse that seawater in the farm. And that could be done anywhere.
You're a Florida native, as you mentioned earlier. Tell us a little bit about your history, and I have to let our audience know that when I say you are the expert, you only have to pick up some of the journals and some of the expert publications, and your name's all over the place. But give us a little bit about your background.
One, I cringe with expert because I've killed more shrimp than any other human being on this earth, and I apologize for that. But it's a learning process, and we know a lot more now than we did back in 1978. So we've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but we've learned a lot too. And that's why we have available abundant shrimp at lower prices. And we practice much better, guardianship of the environment than we used to. There's no question about that. But it's a learning process. So what we do today is much better than what we did in 1978. My history, well, I am the son of an Alabamian, and I am the son of a Silver Springs native residents whose father basically started Silver Springs back in the early 1900s, came to the state of Florida in 1870 or so. And she has taught me to really be proud of this state and the resources and everything that this state stands for. So my father wanted a shrimp farm, and this is his present.
I can tell that right from the heart that that means a lot to you. And, ladies and gentlemen, you really have to know the passion that is here, to know that this is something that you're not done with yet. I see many more years, and this going all over the country with Robin's handwritten mark at the bottom. I approve of this. It is good! Exclamation point. So I really see this going huge for shrimp. I know that's an
And
idiom.
again, this is like shrimp farming that we started in the late 1970s. It is a pioneering effort. It will only get better. We will only learn. We learn every day. And what I will call the second generation will be better than this Model T we have now. And the third generation will be better than the second generation. And at some point, shrimp farming will be very much a reality in the United States.
And that is a statement that I know we do not take lightly, because your word is your honor. I've learned that from just some of the associations. When you say something, you don't go back on your word. So I know that is to be true. If someone wants to purchase from the farm, they can do so?
Yes, we do sell from the farm, and we're trying to find better ways for distribution. Again, the main objective here was to show the technology works to produce shrimp. Marketing was secondary to this, and because we're not sized for profits. I would like to make some revenue to offset costs, but it's really about demonstrating the technology. And as a result, the technology actually worked so well in the beginning, we got overwhelmed with shrimp with no market. So we've been through our lumps in trying to market shrimp, but there is a web page that you can order from. Hopefully we will set up distribution points within Martin County and further south and up to Orlando, where it's not so difficult to come and purchase the shrimp as an individual. And hopefully we'll be able to establish our presence in your finer restaurants.
Looking forward to that. We've covered a lot of territory. Is there anything we haven't touched? And I know there is a lot, but is there anything for this episode that we should talk about before we begin to wrap up?
That's really up to you.
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started. I was telling Robbins this morning that I just read an article on how EHP impacts shrimp, and you're going, what the heck is EHP? We would be here for an hour if we got into EHP, but seriously, there are other things that I would love to talk about. So my question is, can you come back for another episode?
Anytime you want to invite me, I've always got an hour.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, we have it straight from the expert in the field. And there I go using that word again. But I appreciate your time, and we are going to do our part to help generate awareness of Homegrown Shrimp USA and the wonderful shrimp that you have to offer as the largest inland, away from the coast, shrimp farm in the United States. Robbins McIntosh.
I will say one more thing.
Sure.
Not only are we the largest inland shrimp farm, but we are developing a staff of young Americans that will become the next generation of shrimp experts for the United States. So I don't bring in anybody with experience. I like to bring them in as new and learn as we go along. So we've got some dedicated young people here that will be the next generation of shrimp farms and shrimp farmers in the United States.
Yep, I can tell you a couple of those names come to mind from my visits to the farm, and just the knowledge and the enthusiasm that they have. You've got a winning team. Robbins McIntosh, it has been my pleasure to have you here on the program, and we look forward to having you back in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And I am Sam Yates, your host of the Florida Business Forum. We're filling a void of business news that is developed in Florida and throughout the country. So as you have information you would like to share with us, that you would like for us to share with an audience, let me hear from you. Have a great day, everybody. The Florida Business Forum is dedicated to showcasing Florida businesses and CEOs of all sorts to promote their business or not-for-profit in the only business forum of its type in Florida. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, the Florida Business Forum is now accepting guest applications. Have a great day, everyone, and stay tuned for more business.